Hey guys, it's Will at Third and Long. Welcome to my Week 11 college football predictions video for the 2023 college football season. Who's going to win, who's going to lose, and what we predict the final scores of each top 25 game should be. So let's go ahead and get started looking at Week 11. Hit that like button and subscribe. Coming in the first game on Thursday night at 7:30 on ESPN, we have 2-7 Virginia at number 13 Louisville at 8-1. Now, this is based off of the first college football rankings because obviously the actual poll doesn't come out till tonight. So there's going to be a couple changes here, but Louisville is still number 13. So it kind of feels like Louisville is waiting to lose here. They've been playing really well, had a really good win this past weekend, but it just seems like they are due to go 8-2, and that might happen at some point. But maybe they'll just finish the season 11-1. We don't really know as of yet, but they're having a really good year this year, scoring 33 points per game. They have Plummer, they have Jordan, they have Washington. Virginia has absolutely nothing going for them right now. They don't play offense, they don't play good defense, and Virginia definitely has a really bad rush defense, and Louisville can definitely run the ball. So Louisville comes in as 20-point favorites, and I have Louisville winning 38-17 and covering that spread as well. Next game we have on Saturday at 12 p.m. on Fox. We have number 3 Michigan at 9-0 versus number 11 Penn State at 8-1. Michigan comes in as 4.5-point favorites here. This is a matchup of top 3 defenses. So Penn State's defense gives up 11.6 points per game. That's number 3 in the country. Michigan's defense gives up 6.7 points per game. That's number 1 in the country. So crazy defenses here. Penn State's biggest problem, Drew Aller having a great year. He has 20 touchdowns, 1 pick, but he has no vertical threats to push and stretch out that Michigan defense. Michigan must get the run game going. It's been kind of lackluster the last 2 to 3 weeks, but nonetheless, they have the better team here, and they definitely have the playmakers, and they have the better running game. They have the better quarterback. So this is going to be a tough one, and it's at Penn State. This game should not be at 12. This should be at 7 or 8, and it should be the whiteout game. But I have Michigan getting the win here, 28-17, and covering that spread. Even with the off-the-field Harbaugh stuff, if they do suspend him for some reason, it's not going to matter. They should win this game even without Harbaugh. The next game we have at 12 p.m. on ESPN, we have number 8 Alabama at 8-1 versus Kentucky at 6-3. So Kentucky's coming off of that beatdown of Mississippi State, so they finally ended that losing streak. Bama, 10.5-point favorites here. Bama is coming off of that win versus LSU. What a good win that was, although that was targeting versus Daniels, and that did definitely change the game, but nonetheless a really good win for Alabama. Alabama's offense has kind of gotten things clicking the last few weeks with Milroe. They've had the running game going. They've had the vertical game going. Kentucky has gotten the passing game going with Devin Leary the last few weeks because he did start out the year god-awful. But nonetheless, they still have Davis at running back. He's closing in on 1,000 yards as the starting running back. Kentucky has a pretty decent defense, but Alabama has a pretty decent defense as well. Look for Alabama to cruise to the win here. This game is never close. Bama will win 35-17, and I have them covering that spread as well. The next game we have at 12 p.m. on Fox Sports, 4-5 Texas Tech versus number 21 Kansas at 7-2. Now, Texas Tech, they're a lot better than their record shows. They did lose their quarterback for a large part of this year, so that's kind of held them back since they lost to Wyoming in Week 1. But this team is better than their record shows. Do not underestimate them. They can throw, and they can definitely run the ball with Brooks. Now for Kansas, they lost their quarterback as well. Who will be playing this weekend? Daniels, Bean, we don't know, but Kansas is running the ball down everyone's throats, having a really strong year this year. They are number 21 as of right now. When the new poll comes out, they'll probably be 18 or 19, but they'll be moving into that top 20 definitely for sure. Kansas is 3.5-point favorites here. This is at Kansas. There should be a pretty decent crowd there. Kansas is having a really strong year, so lots of props to them. I have Kansas getting the win here and improving to 8-2. I have Kansas winning 30-24 and covering that spread. Next game we have at 12 p.m. on ESPN2, we have Tulsa at 3-6 versus number 24 Tulane at 8-1. Tulane 23-point favorites here. Tulane has been failing to cover the spread for the last 3 to 4 weeks. They have a very good team. They have Pratt, They have Hughes at running back. They have Keys at wide receiver. This team is loaded at all of the positions, but they do not have a good defense, and they win every game by less than one score. Tulsa is not good at all. Look for Tulane to get the win here, 37-20. They just won't cover that pretty big spread. Coming in at 3 p.m. on the Big 12 Network, we have Baylor at 3-6 versus Kansas State at 6-3. So Baylor under Dave Aranda, a complete disaster the last 2 years. Kansas State is 20.5-point favorites here. So they have Kansas State beating the living crap out of the Baylor Bears. I would not be surprised if that happens. Baylor is not good at anything. They can't stop anyone from scoring. They can't score consistently. They've had quarterback health problems this year. Kansas State, very good team under Will Howard. They have Giddens at running back. This is a very talented team that can keep the ball on the ground and keep it out of the horrible Baylor offense's hands. I have Kansas State getting the win here, 34-21. I just don't have them covering that spread. That's a pretty big spread for an in-conference game. At 3:30 p.m. on ABC, 6-3 Miami at number 4, Florida State at 9-0. Florida State 14.5-point favorites here. This should have been a night game. This should have been a matchup of ranked teams. But Miami's laid an egg in the easiest games this year. They did lose to NC State last week. Tyler Van Dyke is a complete shell of himself. He better not start at quarterback. He has 11 interceptions this year, 10 in the last 4 games. He's a complete mess. He has been holding this team back. Florida State, they have Travis, they have Benson, they have Coleman. A lot of guys might be out this week. So they did not have a good win last week versus Pitt, but they got the win. But they're having health problems. So if those guys like Coleman don't play, this game could be really close because Miami has the number 19 defense in the country, giving up 19 points per game, and they are a tough, hard-hitting defense. I have Florida State, though, getting the win, 31-17. So they'll get a comfortable win, but I just don't have them covering that spread. Coming in at 3:30 on Fox, we have number 18 Utah at 7-2 versus Washington, number 5 at 9-0. Washington, 8.5-point favorites here. So this is a really tough game because this is hands down the best defense that Washington has played this whole year. Utah will get up in Penix's face. They will hit him hard. They will be really physical. Utah scored 55 points last week. I don't know how that happened. Their offense is complete garbage, but they have a really good defense, really good special teams. Kyle Whittingham is the most underappreciated coach in the country. So Utah will not get blown out. That will not happen, and they will hit Washington hard. Could Washington get upset this game? Very possible. Whenever you play these tough line of scrimmage teams, Washington could easily get bulldozed and pushed up and down the field. However, Penix is in the Heisman talk right now. He's one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the country. They have so many weapons. They have Penix, they have Johnson, they have the best wide receiver core in the country led by Odunze. This is a very good team. Look for Washington to get a hard-fought win here, 31-17, but they won't cover that spread. Next game we have at 3:30 p.m., number 17 Tennessee at 7-2 versus number 12 Missouri at 7-2 as well. Tennessee 1-point favorites here. So this game is virtually a pick-em. This game could go either way. Either one of these teams could get to 8 wins first. Tennessee, Milton has been throwing the ball pretty decently. He has 75% completion percentage in the last few games. They have a pretty good run game. They have a decent defense. Missouri, obviously coming off of that hard-fought loss versus Georgia. They did play them really close. So they won, well, they lost 30-21, but they only lost by 9. So they were able to get under that spread. Missouri has the better skill position players. They have Cook, they have Schrader, they have Burden. So I think that's what's going to make the difference here. It is at home in Missouri. I have the Missouri Tigers winning 33-31 in a really close game, just based off their skill position players and their offense. They should be able to get things back on track here after that loss versus Georgia. Coming in at 3:30 p.m. on ESPN, we have number 22 Oklahoma State, who, once the poll comes out, they'll probably be number 14 or 15. But they'll be playing UCF at 4-5, and Oklahoma State is a 2.5-point favorite here. So even though Oklahoma State is the better team, the Knights are the favorite team. They are at home. They are a lot better than their record shows. They have John Rice Plumlee back at quarterback. He can run. He can throw. very good quarterback. They are an underrated team. Do not underestimate the Golden Knights here. But Oklahoma State does have Ollie Gordon, potentially the number one running back in all of college football. He's closing in on 1,300 yards, and he has 12 touchdowns, and he controlled the game on the ground last weekend. Look for that to continue here. Based off of Oklahoma's run game, they should be able to establish and maintain control of this whole game. I have Oklahoma State here getting a win, 30-20 and covering. But a lot of people are obviously calling for the upset here. Coming in at 5:30 on the Pac-12 network, 3-6 Stanford, who is coming off of a win versus Washington State. How did that happen? Versus number 16 Oregon State at 7-2. So Oregon State, 21.5-point favorites here. They have them beating the garbage out of the Stanford Cardinals. Stanford is not a good team, but they're somewhat competitive in games. They can definitely get up for some games. Oregon State, though, Stanford has no run game. They have no rush defense. So look for Oregon State to control the line of scrimmage, control the clock. They have DJU. He's having a really good year passing the ball. He can run when needed. And they also have Martinez at running back. Look for them, just like Oklahoma State, keep the ball on the ground, drain the clock. And I have them getting a comfortable win here versus Stanford, winning 28-14. They just won't cover that pretty big spread. The next game that we have coming in at 7 p.m. on ESPN, we have number 10 Ole Miss at 8-1 versus number 2 Georgia at 9-0. So Georgia is 10.5-point favorites here. Ole Miss is having a very under-the-radar top season. Bama right now is rooting for Ole Miss because every time Ole Miss wins, that makes Bama's resume look better. But do not underestimate Lane Kiffin's team here. So they have a very serviceable defense. They have Quinton Junkins. They have Jackson Dart. They can throw the ball. They can run the ball. Georgia is coming off of a 30-21 win versus Missouri. This is a very talented team, even without Brock Bowers. They have a top 15 offense. They have a top 15 defense. Carson Beck has been doing really good without Brock Bowers because some of the other guys have stepped up. So this is a pretty wide spread here because Ole Miss played Bama very close. I have Georgia winning this game 28-24. I just don't have them covering that spread. The next game that we have coming up at 7 p.m. on Fox, we have West Virginia at 6-3. What a surprise team for Neil Brown's Mountaineers. 6-3. They are getting a bowl game this season. Very good team here. Versus number 9 Oklahoma 7-2. Now, obviously, Oklahoma's 9 right now, but when the poll comes out tonight, they're probably going to drop to like 17 or 18. But they are number 9 as of this morning. Sooners have Dylan Gabriel. They still have no real run game outside of Dylan Gabriel. They have Farouk on the outside, but their defense has shown a lot of holes the last 3 to 4 weeks, and the offense has been off and on. So they haven't been as consistent as the first half of the season. Sooners are 13-point favorites. That's a pretty big spread here, considering how the Mountaineers are hot, Sooners are limping, but I have the Sooners getting back on track here. I have them winning 28-24, and I have them covering that spread. But they could also get caught reeling, and they could potentially get upset this game. The next game that we have coming up at 7:30 p.m. on NBC, we have Michigan State at 3-6 versus number 1 Ohio State at 9-0. So Michigan State got the win versus Nebraska. That was an upset win, so props to them there. Don't forget, they have no head coach because Mel Tucker was fired. Ohio State, number 1. So Kyle McCord still isn't the guy. He's not getting the job done. They have the number 3 defense. That's what's keeping them in the games. They have Marvin Harrison Jr. So their running game has really stepped up the last few weeks. That's what's getting them there. That and their elite defense shutting teams down. But Kyle McCord, man, step up. You have the number 1, if not number 2, best wide receiver core in the country. It's either the Buckeyes or it's the Washington Huskies. But either way, he has the weapons there, and he's just messing the game up. He's not lighting it up. He should be getting 350 yards every single game, 3-4 touchdowns. He's just being serviceable right now. Just don't cost them the game. But nonetheless, they are winning. They are number one, and they do have the best resume so far this season. So Ohio State, 31.5-point favorites here. So a massive spread. I have the Buckeyes winning 38-13. Kind of like a similar game to last weekend, but they will dominate it more than they did versus Rutgers. I just don't have them covering that massive spread. The next game that we have coming up, we are going to have Texas at TCU. This is going to be a really good game. This is at 7:30 on ABC. Texas is 10-point favorites. They still don't have Quinn Ewers yet, so it will still be Malik Murphy as of right now. Texas is 8-1, coming off of a win. TCU is 4-5. TCU, just like some of these other teams, is actually better than their record. So don't be fooled by the fact that they're 4-5. This is a very serviceable team. They have looked better the last 4 weeks, but I have Texas nonetheless with their top 20 defense and their running game. They have Brooks. They can run the ball down your throat, and their defense can dominate the game on their side of it. So I have Texas getting the win here. So the spread was 10 points, but I have Texas winning 34-23 and getting that spread. The next game we have at 7:30 p.m. on the SEC Network, 5-4 Florida versus number 14 LSU at 6-3. Florida's 5-4. They just lost to Arkansas. Really bad loss for Billy Napier. He needs to get things back on track because they have LSU, then they have Missouri, then they have Florida State. So back-to-back ranked matchups. They could conceivably lose all three and not get a bowl game here. He cannot have that happen for his job and for recruiting purposes. He must steal one of these games. LSU coming off the loss. Jaden Daniels still has not been cleared from that dirty hit that was targeting in the Bama game. He is in concussion protocol right now. They won't know for 48 hours. If he doesn't play, Nussmeier was really bad, but if Daniels plays, look for him to light up the scoreboard. So LSU is 14-point favorites here. I have them winning 38-28, so they won't cover, but I think that their offense should definitely be able to move the ball on Florida. Florida has no defense, and they do not have the firepower to outscore Jaden Daniels. The next game we have coming up is Arizona State at UCLA at 9 p.m. on the Pac-12 network. Bruins are 17-point favorites here. Bruins might not be ranked once the poll comes out, but they are ranked as of right now. Arizona State, 2-7. They have absolutely no offense. They average 17.8 points per game. That is pathetic, but it's not a joke. That's for real. Bruins, they have an okay offense. They've been kind of flip-flopping back and forth between starting quarterbacks, but they do have a top 10 defense, and they get after the quarterback. So they are obviously going to win this game. I have the Bruins winning this one 34-13 and covering that spread. The next game we have, and this is going to be one of the better games of this weekend. This is going to be the USC Trojans versus the Oregon Ducks. This is at 10:30 on Fox. This game is way too late. People want to watch this one. This is a great game. So we have the reigning Heisman champ for USC, who's 7-3. They have Caleb Williams. They are loaded on offense. They just finally fired Alex Grinch, but he honestly should have been fired when he was the defensive coordinator of the Sooners. He should have never came to LA with Lincoln Riley. They'll be playing number 6 Oregon Ducks at 8-1. Hands down the best one-loss team. To me, the best team in the country the last 4 weeks. Now, I'm not saying that they should be number 1, but through the eye test, they've been the best team the last 1 to 2 months. They are 8-1. They have a top 10 defense. They have a top 10 offense. They score 47.4 points per game. They have the number 10 defense in the country, and they average 550 yards per game. They can run. They can throw. Bo Nix is probably the Heisman frontrunner. If not him, Penix. But USC can definitely score the ball. They can move. They just can't stop anyone from scoring. Don't look for that to get better. So Grinch is fired, but it's too late in the season to make a difference. So their defense will be leaderless, and they were garbage with their leader. So I have Oregon cruising to a win here, 48-27, and I have them covering the 16.5-point spread. So that's my breakdown of the Week 11 Top 25 matchups for the 2023 college football season. Hit that like button and subscribe. Thanks. The next game that we have